Hello everyone. In this class we will discuss about the semiconductor devices. So to understand about the semiconductor devices which are used very widely in our day-to-day life of electronic devices and various parts of the industrial purpose, just like computers, mobiles, all kind of electronic devices where we make use of them. So we will discuss here the very basic of it about the solids from which they are made up of and the behavior of these substances and few basic semiconductor devices. To begin with, let us just recall our understanding of the different kinds of materials. In short, so based on electrical conductivity, the solid metals are classified into three types of materials. Either they are the conductors, which are the good conductors of electricity, they conduct electricity very easily and effectively, and opposite to that are the insulators. So insulators are the ones which do not conduct electricity. So we can say that the conductivity of conductors is very high, and on the other hand the conductivity of insulators is very low. And there are other kinds of another type of materials called as semiconductors, which conduct electricity not as good as conductors, not as bad as insulators. Means the conductivity of semiconductors lies there between the conductivity of conductors and the insulators. But that is not the only difference. Their behavior is also different from the conductors. So we will discuss them in the coming topics or steps. So solid materials are either they are classified as crystalline solids or they are the amorphous solids. So we are trying to just take the very basic few things which we already know till now. Okay. So what are crystalline solids? Crystalline solids are one in which the constituent atoms are arranged in a definite and a regular way. So there will be a definite pattern in case of crystalline substances, definite pattern of atoms which constitute these solids, in which they are repeated again and again and form the crystalline solid. On the other hand, in amorphous solids, these atoms, constituent atoms of amorphous, they are arranged in a very irregular manner. Right? There is no proper order of the atoms, constituent atoms. Another thing about crystalline solids is that it have a definite geometrical shape because the atoms have definite and regular way of arrangement in the crystalline solids. So therefore they attain or they achieve a definite geometrical shape, physical shape. And on the other hand, amorphous solids, because they are the constituent atoms are not arranged in a regular manner and therefore they do not have any definite geometrical shape. There are flat surfaces and sharp melting points for the crystalline solids, whereas for the amorphous solids there are no flat surfaces, right, and there is also no one sharp melting point of the amorphous solids. It take a range to melt down of the temperature. It just melt down completely over a range of temperature. Okay. Another point of difference is that uniform crystal composition. The crystalline solids are of uniform chemical composition. That means all the bonds are of identical throughout the crystalline solid. Whereas in amorphous solids, they are not of uniform chemical composition. They are anisotropic crystalline solids. So crystalline solids being anisotropic means their properties, just like chemical properties, thermal conductivity, electrical conductivity, and the compressibility, all these properties, they are different in different directions. Whereas in amorphous solids, they are isotropic, opposite to that of anisotropic, means all their property, just like this thermal conductivity, electrical conductivity, and the compressibility, and like that, they are same in all directions. So these are some points of difference between the crystalline solids and amorphous solids. Okay, so here the semiconductors which we take, they are of crystalline nature because the atoms of the semiconductor materials are arranged in a definite manner. So to begin with now, so this was just the basic understanding of different kinds of solids. So to begin with, we will try to understand the energy bands in the solids. And when we understand the what are energy bands in the solids, then we will try to differentiate between the metallic conductors, insulators, and the semiconductor on the basis of the energy bands. So to begin with, uh, let me take this diagram. Okay, actually what happens in case of solids, the atoms have the electrons in their different orbits, or we can say energy levels. The innermost electrons, or we can say the electrons in the innermost energy orbits or close to the nucleus, they are tightly bound to the nucleus, hence they are not free. But electrons in the valence, or we can say outermost orbit, they are loosely bound to the nucleus, and hence they are shared by all the atoms present in the solid, right? So due to which the interaction happens between the electrons, or we can say energy levels, in the outermost orbits of the different atoms. So due to this interaction, the energy level gets split into a range or of different values. So we will try to understand here. So this, here we are taking the example of silicon crystal, right, whose atomic number is 14. So its electronic configuration is just like this: 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2 and 3p2. So these are the outermost electrons. So these will be loosely bound to the silicon atom, or we can say nucleus. So what happens when the interatomic spacing, so we are plotting the graph, or we can say representing the energy of these outermost electrons, right, or electrons in the outermost orbits with the interatomic spacing, the spacing between the atoms of the silicon crystal. So they have definite energy levels. The innermost energy level, they remain intact whatsoever the separation is there between the atoms, but the outermost energy orbits, 3s2, 3p2, they just get influenced. So how do they get influenced? So when interatomic spacing is reduced up to the distance d, there is no change in the energy levels of the outermost, we can say, orbits, right? When the distance between the atoms is still reduced to some value c, then the energy level starts interacting with each other when the distance between the atoms is reduced up to this value, particular value c. So due to this interaction, the energy level starts overlapping, and this process continues when we keep on reducing the interatomic spacing, or we can say interatomic spacing becomes more and more short or less. And at a particular distance, interatomic spacing, here we are representing it with b, the energy level, the difference between energy level completely just disappears. So there is a continuous energy level here now. All these outermost energy levels are now transformed into the form of a continuous energy level. So there are no two levels now, there is a uniform energy level up to this interatomic spacing. When the interatomic spacing is still further reduced, this uniform energy level starts getting split into the fine nearby placed energy levels of there two sets of the nearby placed energy levels. So upper energy level or high energy level, it is called as the conduction band. It is a set of closely placed energy levels, and below that, after a certain gap of energy, there lies the another band, which is again a set of low energy levels. So that means up to a distance a, interatomic distance a, when interatomic spacing between the atoms of the silicon crystal becomes equal to a, means 2 less, in that case we get two separate bands of the energy levels, one having comparatively higher energy, other one having the comparatively low energies, right? So we are getting two bands of energy levels. Every band consists of a number of energy level closely placed, right? This upper band, higher energy band, where the energy levels are placed close to each other of higher energy comparison to the energy levels which are placed below. This upper band, it is called as the conduction band, and this lower band having the energy levels of low energy, these are called as the this is called as the valence band. And these two bands have the energy gap or energy difference called as forbidden energy gap. There will be no electron here. The electrons will be either in the conduction bands or in the valence bands. So this lower energy band called as valence band, it is completely filled of the electrons, whereas this upper band called as conduction band, it is completely empty or it is partially filled, right? So this is the energy, this is what we mean by the energy bands in the solids. So in solids, the atoms or molecules are so close to each other that their outermost energy orbits, they start interacting with each other, and hence they form two bands of the energy. One is the conduction band having the higher energy levels, and one is the lower energy band called as valence band having low energy levels. So this is how the outermost energy levels get transformed into in case of solids. Okay, so lower band will be completely filled and it will be called as valence electron, and upper band is either completely empty or it is partially filled, it is called as the conduction band. And the difference between the energies of the conduction band and the valence band, this difference of the energies, this is called as the forbidden energy gap or simply energy gap, or this is also called as the band gap, right? Okay. Now we clearly understand the meaning of energy bands in the solids. So transformation of electron takes place from the valence band to the conduction band when they get sufficient amount of energy. How much energy the electrons in valence band require to move to the conduction band, which is a band of higher energy levels or a set of higher energy levels? The energy required is equal to the difference between the conduction energies of the conduction band and the valence band. Simply means forbidden energy gap. So when electrons get this much amount of energy for equal to forbidden energy gap, what electrons? Which are present in valence band. So when electrons in the valence band gains this much amount of energy, they are able to move to the conduction band, or we can say they attain a higher energy state. Now with this energy, they can easily overcome the nuclear forces and become free and leave the atom. And becoming free means they are ready to be conducted, and they will be ready to conduct electricity. So now on the understanding of the energy bands in solids, we will now try to differentiate between the metallic conductors, insulators and the semiconductor materials. So to begin with, let us take the metals as the conductors. So in metals, the valence band and the conduction band are so close to each other that the energy gap between the conduction and valence band is nearly zero, very nearly equal to zero, or either the valence band is it nearly overlaps the conduction band. That simply means that the electrons in valence band, they require very small amount of energy so that they can cross to conduction band, or even they can cross to the conduction band even at room temperatures. So in that means more electrons in the conduction band means more electrons will be able to uh, conduct electricity, right? So in metals or metallic conductors, what happens, the difference between conduction and valence band is omitted out. That means they lie so close to each other that the electrons in valence band can easily move to the conduction band in order to conduct electricity. So this is about the metallic conductors. The uppermost energy level of the valence band, it is called as the Fermi level. One must remember these terms while discussing the electronics here. So Fermi level is the highest energy level present in the valence band, and it is called as the Fermi, the energy corresponding to that Fermi level, it is called as the Fermi energy. So that means in metals, the electrons in valence band can gain that much amount of energy, which is very, very less even at room temperature. So therefore, there are large number of electrons in the conduction band available to conduct the electricity. So that is the reason for the better conductivity provided by the metallic materials or substances. On the other side, insulators. In case of insulating materials, what happens? Which are the bad conductors of electricity? It is because the difference between energies of the, or we can say lowermost energy level of the conduction band and uppermost energy level of the valence band, means forbidden energy gap. It is very, very large. It is about 6 electron volts, which is very large, right? So because of this large energy gap, the electrons in valence band never get this much amount of energy so that they can move from valence band to conduction band, right? So for example, for diamond, the energy gap even rises to 7 electron volts. So conduction band remains completely empty, and hence they have no electrons in the conduction band which can conduct the electricity. So for this reason, these materials are bad conductors, or we can say insulators of the electricity. Then comes semiconductors. The behavior of semiconductor is because the conduction band and valence band are not widely placed from each other and not very close as in case of metals. So the forbidden energy gap, or energy gap between the conduction band and valence band, it is nearly equal to 1 electron volt, right? So energy gap for here, it is given for two kinds of semiconductors. For silicon, it is 1.1 electron volt, and for germanium, germanium, it is 0.74 electron volt, right? So which is small enough so that electrons at room temperature, some of the electrons at room temperature can take this much amount of energy from valence band and move to the conduction band. So some of electron will be there in order to conduct electricity. So therefore, this is the reason for the mild conductivity of the semiconductor materials. But that is not the only advantage of making use of semiconductors, right? We will talk about them one by one as we come to that point. Okay, so what will be the fraction of electrons in valence band to the electrons in the which has moved to the conduction band? So this fraction, it will be directly proportional to e to the power minus Eg upon Kt. Here K is the Boltzmann constant and T is the temperature at which we are knowing the fraction of electrons. Fraction of electrons of the valence band which move to the conduction band. So it will be directly proportional to minus Eg upon Kt. Clearly, more is the temperature, more number of electron will gain the energy in order to move to the conduction band, and hence the electrical conductivity will increase. This is the main difference or property of the semiconductor devices, that with increase in the temperature, more number of electron will be available. They will be moving from valence band to the conduction band by overcoming this much of energy gap of 1 electron volt approximately, and therefore the more number of electron will be available with the increase in temperature in the conduction band to conduct the electricity. So that means with increase in the temperature, the semiconductor material starts behaving more and more conducting. Whereas opposite to that, in case of metallic conductors, with increase in temperature, their resistance goes on increasing. However, number of electron increases, but due to the resistance, their conductivity decreases. So this is the main difference between the metallic conductors and the semiconductors. So we have clearly understood what are energy band gaps or energy bands and how the behavior, conductive behavior of the different kinds of material, just like metallic conductors, insulators, and semiconductor, can be explained or understood based on these energy band theory. From now onwards, we will take on the semiconductors only, which are made used to fabricate the electronic devices, which are used in wide electric instruments or electronic instruments in our today's life. So, based on the classification, the semiconductor devices are classified into two ways. One, the semiconductor materials are called as the intrinsic or pure semiconductors, and other one are the extrinsic or impure semiconductor. So we will talk about them one by one. So let us take the intrinsic or pure semiconductor first. So what kind of semiconductor are they? So in order to understand that, we are taking the example of germanium crystal. This is a semiconducting material. So the in the outermost energy orbit, or we can say outermost orbit of germanium crystal, there are 2 electrons or 4 electrons, just like silicon, and these electrons in the outermost orbit are shared by the neighboring germanium atoms. So they form a crystal structure just like this. They are placed in a very regular and a definite manner. So what happens? They are called as the pure semiconductor. There are no other kind of atoms present in the crystal of the germanium crystal. So only germanium atoms are there. So this kind of semiconductor, it is called as pure semiconductor or intrinsic semiconductor. So these are the electrons. You can say here, these are the covalent bonds between the outermost electrons in the germanium atom. So these are the covalent bonds. So electrons in their outermost energy orbit are shared by the neighboring atoms. Right? For example, we can take this germanium atom. It has 4 valence electrons which are shared by the other germanium atoms present in the crystal. So this is what shape or internal structure of germanium crystal as a intrinsic semiconductor or pure semiconductor is. So what happens when this germanium crystal is heated upon, or even at room temperature, the electrons in the covalent bond get the thermal energy, and due to that thermal energy, they easily leave that its place and become free. They easily break. They move from valence band to the conduction band. That means they gain the higher energy equal to the energy of the conduction band. There will be no electron in between the valence band and the conduction band. So electron, whenever heated, or they can be gain this thermal energy even at room temperature, and therefore they become free by moving from valence band to conduction band and become free. So electron which become free, they can move anywhere within the crystal, and the empty space left by the electron behind, it is called as the vacancy of electron. It carries the positive charge of equal magnitude of the electron. So this here is called as the hole, and electron becomes free. So electron, in other way, we can say that the electron leaves a hole behind, which has the same properties as the electron, except that it carries the positive charge, which is opposite to that of the electron, which carries negative charge. So all these electrons which gain the thermal energy even at a room temperature, or a slight heating or applying even a very weak electric field, they gain this much amount of energy and become free by moving from valence band to the conduction band by overcoming the energy gap, and therefore the conductivity of this pure or intrinsic semiconductor goes on increasing with increase in temperature. So simply intrinsic semiconductors are one in which there are no impurity, or we can say there are no alien atoms present, right? On the other hand, so there may be few things to sum up here. The number of electrons, number density of electrons and number density of holes, they are represented as Ni and Pi. Ni is the number density of electrons in this intrinsic semiconductor, and Pi is the number density, or we can say concentration of holes in case of we can say intrinsic semiconductor. So as appears from here, one electron leaves one hole behind. So that means the number of holes and number of electrons will be same, equal in intrinsic semiconductor. And for carrying the electrical conductivity or replying to the electrical conductivity, both these positive charge holes means vacant space left behind the electron, and the negatively charged electron, both will act as the carriers of the electrical we can say current. So both will act as the current carriers, right? On the other hand, when we add some impurity atom or atoms of other kind in the germanium crystal, for example here we are taking the germanium crystal. Now this impurity atom, this is called as impurity atom, which we are adding to the pure semiconductor or intrinsic semiconductor. Now the semiconductor, it will be called as extrinsic or impure semiconductor with the addition of that external atom of other kind. So this process is called as doping. So we are doping a pure or we can say intrinsic semiconductor with atoms of the other kind, other materials, and this process is called as the doping. And with this doping, now the semiconductor does not remain pure, but it becomes impure because it contains the atoms of the other material also. And other name given to this impure semiconductor is the extrinsic semiconductor. So this doping can be done in different ways. First, by heating the crystal in presence of the dopant atoms. So what are dopant atoms? These are the atoms which are being added to the pure or we can say intrinsic semiconductor, right? So if we place the atoms over the pure semiconductor or intrinsic semiconductor, atoms which are to be added called as dopant atoms, and heat the crystal, then these dopant atoms will leave uh, inside of that intrinsic semiconductor, and hence it will no more be a pure semiconductor. It will become impure semiconductor or extrinsic semiconductor. The other method is by adding impurity atoms in molten state of the semiconductor. When this pure or intrinsic semiconductor, it is already in the molten state, the addition of dopant atoms can also be done, or impurity atoms can also be done. And third method is the bombarding the pure semiconductor by the ions of impurity atoms. When impurity atoms are made to move very fast towards the pure semiconductor, they will be bombarding the semiconductor and hence infusing in the intrinsic semiconductor, making it impure or extrinsic semiconductor. So these are some methods by which the pure semiconductors are converted into the impure or extrinsic semiconductors. So here it is the diagram. Here it is the germanium crystal. So on adding the impurity atoms of arsenic, for example, arsenic. So what it does? Arsenic being the material of group 5 element, it has 5 valence electrons. So that means when one atom of arsenic material is added to the germanium pure semiconductor, or we can say intrinsic semiconductor, the 4 of the electrons of the arsenic atom, they are shared by the germanium atom. So it takes the place of one germanium atom, and 4 of its electrons are shared by the germanium atoms, and one electron is left free because there is no other atom, germanium atom, which can take this electron. So it gives one extra electron to the this pure semiconductor and make it extrinsic semiconductor. So that means the energy level, there are electrons with one atom, one electron is donated by this arsenic atom to the germanium crystal. So this electron is free, it remains free, and therefore this electron can conduct the electricity easily. So by adding the impurity atoms, what we see, we get free electrons when we add the impurity atom, just like arsenic, which is an element of group 5, which has 5 valence electrons. So how the we can say doping is done? So that arsenic atom take the place of germanium crystal. It kicks out the germanium atom here, it takes the place of that germanium atom, and four of its electrons are shared by the other germanium atoms, and one electron remains free, which is able to conduct electricity. So that means more arsenic atoms are added, more number of electrons will be available there to conduct electricity. So this way the extrinsic or impure semiconductors are made.